Well, I wasn't going to say anything about bin Laden's death. What is there to say apart from good riddance? But the aftermath has become a lot more interesting than the event itself. Now, personally, I don't think the Americans did anything wrong, despite all the noises we've been hearing all week, especially here in Europe, about legality and human rights and blah, 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 from people who would love to frame America as the bad guy here for taking out this enemy field commander and self-confessed mass murderer without allowing him access to an army of human rights lawyers eager to show he was suffering from low self-esteem and should be entitled to counselling and compensation. The only people who should be apologising here are the Pakistanis, and they have said they're embarrassed, which makes a change. I was beginning to think nothing could embarrass that country. They've had some questions to answer, which they have answered in the usual way with excuses and lies and blaming everybody but themselves. I'm surprised they haven't demanded compensation. Oh, but wait, they already get $3 billion a year from the American taxpayer and another hefty chunk from the British taxpayer. The country is effectively living on welfare, but they can afford nuclear weapons, and despite being quite happy to take all this money, they've still shown that they simply can't be trusted. And that's why the Americans cut them out of the loop. It's a decision that would not have been taken lightly, but they knew damn well the Pakistanis would tip off bin Laden. And these are the people we're trusting to keep nuclear weapons out of the hands of terrorists. That's why the money's really being paid. It's protection, pure and simple. Pay up and nothing happens to the nukes. That way everybody's happy and a few Pakistanis get very, very rich. Or would that be a cynical assumption? Even now, certain questions remain unanswered. Questions like, can the Pakistani intelligence service actually find their own arse in the dark with both hands, or can't they? Given what's happened, I think they should have to physically prove it before that country gets any more money. Meanwhile, President Obama deserves some credit for giving the go-ahead to take out the trash, as it were, but in truth, he needed this. He's a politician, he needs to be popular, and he needs to show he's got a little Reagan in him as well, even if it is just for show, otherwise he knows he hasn't got a hope in hell of being re-elected. He was careful to make the point that America is not at war with Islam, although he neglected to add that Islam is at war with America, both from outside and inside the country. And talking of which, I'd like to know what kind of cultural awareness and sensitivity training the Navy SEALs received before being sent in. I hope they showed some respect and remembered to remove their shoes before entering. I also hope they didn't accidentally damage a copy of the Quran or, heaven forbid, interrupt anyone who was praying. I'd also like to know why local Muslim community leaders weren't consulted beforehand. That's bound to cause resentment and mistrust, which can sow the seeds of division. I blame the Jews. Well, doesn't everybody? They buried Osama at sea, or dumped him in the ocean, depending on your point of view, because they didn't want his grave to become a shrine, but they still gave him an Islamic funeral he didn't deserve as a goodwill gesture, which has been predictably taken as a slap in the face by the professional complainers in the Islamic world who wanted him buried in the ground and facing Mecca and all done up with pretty bows. One bearded buffoon even called it a declaration of war, but I don't know what kind of Rip Van Winkle world he's been living in, because it seems to me that war was declared pretty unequivocally 10 years ago, when more than 3,000 innocent people were murdered in the name of the religion of peace. The Americans won't release photographs of the body because they say it might inflame things, but I'd say on balance flying planes into buildings is much more likely to inflame things, wouldn't you? But what this means is, of course, that the conspiracy theories are now in full flow. He isn't really dead, he was never even there. It's all as fake as the moon landings. But it didn't have to be this way. They shouldn't need photographs to prove this guy is dead. They should have kept the body. They should have brought the son of a bitch back to New York, pickled him in alcohol, and mounted him on top of the Ground Zero mosque with a pork chop in his mouth and a fireman's axe up his arse. Or is that just me? Facing Mecca, of course, because we wouldn't want to be disrespectful. Peace. Yeah, right.